University. Hi, welcome to the session Integrated Materials Management. Materials management is said to be a prime corporate function. Materials management plays a very important role in the management of the organization and is considered to be one of the top level corporate activities. The materials manager directly reports to the chief executive. Materials management is treated as an important area of management like production, marketing, finance and procurement. For example, in case of processing industries, a little layout is added to the raw materials for their conversion into finished products. The cost of materials may be as high as 70% of the total cost of production. In such a situation, financial considerations are greater than the manufacturing responsibilities, and hence, instead of considering the materials manager as a subordinate to the works manager, he should be placed on par with him. So, the materials management is considered to be one of the important corporate functions as that of the production, marketing, finance, and procurement. Materials management is also considered as an operating function because it is said to be a part of the production function. Sometimes the materials manager acts as a subordinate to the works manager, and this management function, namely the materials management function, is considered to be a service function to the operations, and it is also regulated with the other operations under the control and superintendence of the works manager. The splitting of materials management department will largely depend upon the quantum of work of each section and the need of the organization. Whether the materials management is treated as a prime function or an operating function, the nature of splitting activities will be more or less the same. This integration of the materials management function with the other functions of the management will depend upon the objectives of the materials management. The main objective of the materials management is to have the supply of materials continuously under the lowest possible cost. Normally, this materials management significantly contributes to the survival and profits of the enterprise. And this profits and the survival of the enterprise mainly depends upon the uninterrupted supply of materials at the lowest possible cost. And this low operating cost will also include the controlling of materials and avoiding the spoilage and the wastage of the materials. The basic objectives of materials management may be the selection of the materials and the lowest operation cost. Correct specification of material and components is to be determined, and it should be in agreement with the assessment of the sales program of any organization. Normally, this is possible by analyzing the requisition order of the purchasing department. With the standardization and codification, any materials manager can lower the cost and the task of the procurement, replacement, whichever is considered to be more important, and the task of controlling the materials becomes easier. The next basic objective is said to be the lowest operating cost, and this lowest operating cost and increasing the profits are possible by having the receipt of materials in a good condition and maintaining the materials, controlling the materials in a very efficient manner. The issue of materials must be made only according to the receipt of the appropriate authority. And once again, the surplus stocks should also be continuously monitored, and appropriate measures must be taken to control the surplus stock. Thus, the main objective of the materials management is said to be the selection of the materials and supply of materials in an uninterrupted manner at the lowest operational cost. This will increase the efficiency of any organization, and as we already said, The material cost constitutes more than 70% of the production cost. The controlling of materials, storing of materials, procuring of materials must be made in a very efficient manner. These objectives will result in the following benefits to the organization. First one is the regular uninterrupted supply of materials to ensure the continuous production. The production should not be hampered for want of materials, and at the same time surplus materials should not be maintained. These basic outcomes of the objectives are as follows. The first one is a regular uninterrupted supply of raw materials to ensure the continuity of the production. So continuous production should be ensured by the materials manager by providing the materials in a regular manner. Any shortage of materials should not hamper the production, or it should not disturb the production, which may disturb the other activities also. Next one is the surplus material should not be maintained, as there may be excessive investment in the surplus stock and there may be a risk of obsolescence or any wastage of materials also, which may increase your cost of production. So economy in purchasing and also minimizing the waste will result in the highest productivity. So with a minimum of your material supply, there must be a maximum of your output. That is the relationship between the input and the output. Input-output ratio must be maintained, thus relating to the higher productivity. And again, any materials that are stored in the stores and the cost of maintaining the materials should also be controlled. And once again, the cost of production should be automatically controlled, which will increase the profits of the organization. The materials manager must also be very cautious enough to buy the best quality of the raw materials at the most competitive price. These objectives and also the benefits of these objectives must be related with the integrated materials management. This integrated materials management is evolved because materials management is not a single function, and it is said to be a coordinated function by a materials manager, because the production will be based on the sales budget, and the production budget will tell about the total raw materials to be purchased in an organization. So the procurement budget will be prepared by the materials manager by knowing about the requisitions from all production departments. So he has to integrate all the functions relating to the materials, and he cannot function alone. So this integrated materials management gains importance in any organization, and that must be led by a common head. The materials managers always ensure uninterrupted flow of materials, components and parts from the suppliers to the corporation to all the consumer points in the organization, and distribution of finished goods at the minimum cost. So right from the sourcing of materials till the supply of materials to the production departments, the materials manager should plan accordingly. The flow of material is said to be in an uninterrupted manner and in a uniform manner. The integrated materials management consists of the following areas. First one is the materials planning, that is the materials requirement planning. This material requirement planning will be based on the acquisitions made by all the production departments and the service departments. The materials manager should coordinate and consolidate all the requisitions received from the production departments and the service departments. After coordinating and consolidating the requisitions from the all departments, the materials manager must go on to the sourcing of the materials, finding out the various sources of suppliers and finding out the supplier who is going to supply at a good quality at a competitive price. After finding out the vendor, namely the supplier, then the purchasing will be made. The purchasing will be made to the supplier, that is, the order should be made to the supplier who is going to give a good quality at a reasonable price. At any point of time, for controlling the cost, the quality should not be sacrificed. After placing the intent or the order to the supplier, then it is the materials manager's responsibility to have a follow-up on the orders placed. After following up the orders, then the materials manager has to receive and inspect the materials. While receiving the stores into the organization, he has to check up the quality of the materials received. Whether the quality is as per the orders placed or the samples shown by the supplier, and he may go in for 100% inspection or he may go in for sample inspection. If he is going for 100% inspection, he has to inspect all the units received. Or if he is going for sample inspection, he can draw the samples from the total goods received and he can go in for the inspection. He has to inspect all the quality of the materials and then he has to receive it into the store. While receiving the materials into the stores, he has to check up whether the materials are as per the quality mentioned or as per the specifications mentioned, and if it is so, he can store it in the stores. Suppose if it is not up to the quality, then he may return it to the supplier stating that such and such materials are not up to the mark or up to the quality expected. If the supplier says that he has to inspect the materials at the manufacturer's place, then the supplier will come and inspect, and only if he is satisfied he will take back the goods. Suppose if it is damaged during the transit, it has to be agreed upon during the purchase order itself who has to bear the damage during the transit. Suppose if the supplier has agreed to accept the damage during the transit, then the supplier has to take back the goods which is not up to the quality. Suppose if the supplier takes some time to take back the goods, then those goods which are not up to the quality will be kept in a separate place, and that will be called as the quarantine stores. These quarantine stores will not be used by the manufacturer and it will be kept till the supplier comes and inspects and takes it back. And proper adjustments should be made in the invoices for the materials returned to the suppliers also. After inspecting and storing it in the stores, then it is the responsibility of the storekeeper to ensure the safety and security of the store's receipt. It must be properly stored in the places it has been marked. Say it is a bin. Bin is a place where the materials are stored. It may be a rack, or it may be a room, or it may be an open space. It is a place where the materials are stored. So the bin should be properly maintained, and a bin card should also be maintained, stating about the various levels of inventory, namely the maximum level to be maintained, minimum level, average level, reorder level, danger level, etc. So the bin card should be maintained by the storekeeper on the bins, and it is an indication to the storekeeper to make an order. Suppose if it is attained the reorder level, he has to make up an order. So the levels of the inventory should be maintained in the bins, and the bins should be properly maintained by the storekeeper, and it must be properly secured also. And again, the materials manager has to plan for the transit of the materials from the stores to the manufacturing departments, and he has to maintain the internal transport system, and while issuing the stores, he has to maintain the stores ledger where the units and the value are mentioned in the stores ledger, and we have various methods of issuing these stores, and we will see to the next unit wherein it will be first in first out, last in first out. We will have the average unit price, standard price, etc. So we have various methods of issuing these stores, and it must be properly valued and it must be entered in the stores ledger. While seeing the stores ledger, the storekeeper can easily maintain or it can easily calculate the levels of the inventory and the quantum of units that has been issued to the various production departments in a very accurate manner together with the value of materials issued. And again, we have various inventory controlling techniques, namely the ABC control, and we have the XYZ bed, and again we will see it in the next unit. We have the vital, essential, desirable, and we have the slow moving, non-moving, and fast moving goods, and we have the ABC analysis, always better controlled analysis, and we have contextual inventory system. We have many inventory control techniques that are meant to be maintained by the storekeeper to control the various levels of the inventories. And the material handling methods should also be mentioned by the storekeeping department. He has to see whether it is to be manually handled or it must be handled in a mechanical way or an automated way. You may have your forklifts, or you may have the elevators, or you may have the conveyor belts. There are many methods of handling the materials from the stores to the production departments. Material handling methods should also be properly mentioned, and all the material handling equipment should also be properly maintained also. So the internal transportation must be maintained by the storekeeper, and he has to mention the various types of handling equipments depending upon the nature of the products and services that he has to render it to the production departments. And this physical distribution management is said to be an important decision making in management in case of materials management. And this material handling equipments will definitely reduce the time of transporting and also minimizes the wastages in handling the materials. If any particular product is maintained manually, it may lead to the wastages, and you may have the spillouts and other things. So we have the wastages in handling the materials. Suppose we are going to have the mechanical way of handling, like forklifts, we have your conveyor belts, and we have your various methods of handling the equipments like trucks, etc. Then that will be useful in reducing the wastages, thereby reducing the cost of materials. Thus, the logistics and the distribution system in the materials management should be decided by the materials manager. And once again, the surplus materials should be properly controlled. As we said, surplus materials should not be maintained, as it may lead to the excessive investments in the stock and the interest on your excessive investments, the cost maintained and the cost involved in maintaining the surplus materials, and there may be a risk of obsolescence also. This surplus should be controlled. At the same time, you should not go in for the shortage of materials also. Shortage of materials will also lead to the hindrances in the production, which may totally hamper the production, and the production level may go down. This surplus and the surplus control and the caution of going out the shortages should also be maintained by the materials manager. Once again, the scrap disposal. Scrap should also be properly disposed, otherwise it will increase your cost of production. The cost reduction techniques like standardization, codification, the value analysis, reduction of your varieties will also be maintained by the materials manager. And once again, the materials manager should be very cautious enough to say about your market analysis. He has to foresee the markets of your raw materials also. Suppose if your raw materials are not easily found in the market, we will say ubiquitous materials and your on special materials. Suppose if your materials are available everywhere at any point of time, then you can store your materials at the lowest level. Suppose if the materials are said to be a seasonal material, or it may be a special material which cannot be procured at any one point of time, then it has to be stored in the stores to ensure your smooth production. So depending upon the availability of the materials in the market, the storekeeper has to purchase the materials as per the requirements of the production departments. So forecasting the market and analyzing the market is said to be another important quality of a materials manager. So this materials manager is involved in various work or the task, namely planning of the materials, purchasing of the materials, receiving and inspecting the materials, storekeeping the materials, then the controlling the materials, handling the materials, transporting the materials to the production departments, controlling the surplus materials, disposal of the scrap materials, and going out the cost reduction analysis, then forecasting the market structure, that is market demand of your materials. So this integrated materials management encompasses the production planning on one hand and distribution of the finished goods to the customers also. Even the warehousing facilities are taken over by the materials manager in some organizations. The companies which are having these activities transferred under the integrated materials management has found encouraging results by way of the coordination and reduced inventories. Thus, we are seeing the functions of materials management includes material planning, purchasing, receiving, storing, controlling, and disposing of the surplus and the scrap materials. All these functions will give a integrated approach to a materials manager. Efficient management of input of the materials is said to be of most important function in any organization for maximizing the productivity of the materials, which may result in maximizing the profitability for the organization. This well-coordinated approach towards the various issues of the materials manager involves decision making with respect to the materials. All the material related activities, namely the planning of materials, indenting of the materials, the purchase procedure, and the variety reduction through the standardization and codification, which may also result in the rationalization and reducing the uncertainties in the demand and the supply. This integrated materials management is also termed as it involves the various activities, namely handling and transporting the materials, inspecting the materials, storing and issuing of materials to the internal customers. Internal customers, we mean the workers in the organization, and the management of the inventories and the vendor management. Vendor management, managing the suppliers, how to select a supplier, how to place an order with the supplier, how to follow up the supplier, and how to get the materials to be received in time. And once again, the disposal of the obsolete items, the surplus items, the scrap items will also be termed as integrated materials management. So the integrated materials management involves all the functions right from the sourcing of a supplier to the disposal of the surplus materials in an organization. For example, while an inventory management would like to have a minimum level of inventory to show off his performance, purchasing manager would like to place bulk orders in order to lessen his workload and show discounts as reductions. So these two are said to be two extreme objectives. Say the inventory manager is going to have a minimum inventory level to minimize the proper managing of materials, to have a control over the storing of materials, and to have the control over the coordination of all the materials functions. He has to maintain the minimum level of inventory now. But the purchase manager is interested in making a bulk order to reduce the cost of purchase by having the quantity discounts and the discounts for your For example, the materials manager may have to maintain a minimum level of inventory to control the storage cost and the carrying cost. But the purchase manager is very much interested in making a bulk purchase to have the discounts in case of purchase, to have your trade discounts and the quantity discounts. These two objectives are said to be two extreme objectives, and they are said to be contradictory in nature, but both are said to be beneficial to the organization. The materials manager is also right in his way to control the cost of materials by having a minimum level of inventory, and the purchase manager is also right in his way to reduce the cost of purchase by having the quantity discounts and the trade discounts. But these two interests are said to be conflicting interests, and these interests must be balanced and it must be intertwined from the total organizational objectives point of view. So these two persons must sit together and they must find out a midpoint wherein there will be a bulk purchase and also there will be a minimum level of inventory. So the optimum results must be there for an organization. So this integrated materials management says that there must be a coordination between a stores manager and also the purchase manager. This purchase manager is also responsible for the related functions also, because he must be in charge of purchasing good quality products at the right time, at the right place, right? This is said to be the most important objective of any purchase manager. Once again, the purchase manager must be in line with the stores manager also. So these two persons must have a synergy in terms of their own purchasing motive, and once again they have to eliminate the various wastages in the purchases. Wastages kerana, they should not purchase any surplus materials also. For want of trade discounts and quantity discounts, they should not go in for a surplus purchase. At the same time, if the stores manager is going to reduce the carrying cost, you should not go in for the shortage of the stocks also. So the optimum level must be attained by both the persons and they must result in the benefit to the organization. And they must have an informal communication channel and they must have an effective communication between themselves and find out an optimum level of purchase. Integrated materials management is also said to be a coordinated approach towards various issues, namely the material planning, reducing the uncertainties in demand and supply, transporting the materials, inspecting the materials, managing the materials issues, and proper storing of your materials. And once again, as we already said, surplus materials and your scrap materials should be properly disposed also. We shall now sequence the various materials functions in an integrated materials management based on your discussions as before. First one is the forecasting the requirements, going for the requirement planning, materials requirement planning based on the requirements that are given by the production departments. Then making the stocking policies, how to stock, how much to stock, where to stock, when to stock, from whom you have to purchase, etc. Then going for the vendor evaluation, find out the various sources of supply, find out the various vendors first, and once again rate your vendors in terms of their quality, price, delivery point, etc. And once again the vendor rating should be calculated only by the purchase manager and the best vendor must be selected. Then after selecting the vendors, it is going for the release of purchase order to the vendors. After placing the orders, proper follow-up should be maintained to the vendors. And again, receipt of materials, inspecting the materials according and to check up the quality of the materials received, then handling the issue of the materials, then controlling the inventories. All material related activities are related with the various internal customers also. Internal customers, we mean the workers in the organization. The inventory management, the vendor management is also said to be a part of the integrated materials management. Inventory management means maintaining the various levels of inventories, finding out the most economic ordering quantity and the various methods of issuing the materials to the various production departments. And we have the various inventory control techniques as discussed before. The vendor management is also related with the integrated materials management, namely vendor selection, vendor rating and vendor fixing up the vendors for the placing of orders. We must have a vendor-vendee relationships maintained in a very proper manner, and we have meetings with the vendors and proper explanation must be given according to the standardization and qualification of materials to the vendors. The quality of the raw materials should also be ensured, because the quality of the raw materials will decide about the quality of the finished goods. The vendors must be properly instructed to follow the product specifications and also the codifications mentioned by our organization. And proper inspection of the materials in the vendor's place should also be made by the organization, namely the materials manager, if needed. The proper industrial relations in case of vendor's place is also be ensured, because any interruptions in the vendor's place will definitely affect the production in our department also, or in our organization also. So proper vendor-vendee relationships should be maintained. Periodical vendor-vendee meetings should be maintained, and proper selection of vendors is said to be the most important decision by the materials manager. This integrated materials management may result in many advantages. Some are said to be the tangible advantages and some are said to be the intangible advantages. Tangible advantages will mean better accountability. Accountability will mean fixing up the responsibilities. The materials manager is fixed with all the responsibilities, and he is highly responsible for the procurement of materials, receiving of materials, storing of materials, maintaining the materials and controlling the materials. If the organization is said to be a larger one, the purchase manager will take the task of procuring the materials, storing, controlling and inspecting the materials will be done by the stores manager. So the accountability is said to be the best advantage in any organization, because he is answerable for any excessive stocking or excessive investments in the materials, or any obsolete materials that are placed in the stores, or any increase in the cost of purchase also. And if he is properly maintained, he will be rewarded with the proper incentives also in an organization. Then better coordination. As we already discussed, integrated materials management will deal with all the functions, and all these functions will definitely be coordinated in a best possible manner. Better coordination is said to be the best advantage in case of integrated materials management, as he has to integrate, he has to coordinate with the other functions of management, namely the all production functions, finance functions, personnel functions, etc. So these functions should also be properly coordinated, and he must be said to be a best coordinator in case of the purchase of materials in an organization. Then better performance, as it is properly planned in a prior manner, the performance of the materials manager will be definitely enhanced, as he is having a good coordination with all the production departments. The planning, procurement, storing, inspecting, issuing will be in a better way. Then better adaptability to the EDP. So proper maintaining of materials according to the EDP will also be made by a materials manager. These advantages are said to be tangible in nature, that is the accountability, coordination, performance and adaptability to the EDP. These advantages are totally visible in an organization, and these are said to be measurable also in terms of monetary and also profitability manner. There are certain advantages which are said to be intangible in nature, that is, there is a team spirit between the materials manager and other managers, as it is a coordinated function. We can find a team spirit among the managers, and once again there will be a cooperation among the managers, and this will boost the morale in an organization. We shall now see the approach to the integrated materials management. As we have already seen earlier, materials management is said to be a wide term, and it includes a wide range of activities. Various functions performed by the materials management must be well integrated, otherwise a conflict of interest may arise in case they function independently. They are going to integrate the purchase department, marketing department, production department, We shall now see how it integrates the purchase, marketing and production departments. Purchase department, in order to avoid the discount, may buy the large quantities without taking into account its impact on inventory carrying cost and warehousing costs. Marketing department may be interested to have a high level of finished goods inventory to satisfy the customer needs. Production department may be interested to have the materials in advance to avoid the chances of stockouts. So stockout cost is said to be a high risky cost in case of organizations. So these three departments may have a conflicting interest, and once again these individual interests must be balanced by the materials manager. These individual interests may create a lot of problems in the non-liquidity of money, and it may also lead to the bankruptcy of the financial resources. In order to solve these issues, integrated materials management concept is adopted by the organization to take care of all the functions and to close control of inventory is to be ensured to make the resources to be utilized in an optimum manner. Inventory costs are said to be very high, and the idle resources without any productive use may also increase the cost of production, and it may result in the burden on the finance of the enterprise, and this burden can be easily avoided by proper planning of the inventory. An ideal inventory level is said to be just in time, which is normally practiced in Japan, and where only 6 hours of inventory is to be kept. This integrated approach will make all the departments to optimize the level of inventories. Thus, the integrated materials management approach will balance the conflicting objectives of purchase department, marketing department and the production department. And coming to the advantages of this approach, it ensures a better coordination, cooperation in the accomplishment of the functions of materials management. It also creates an atmosphere of trust and maintains better relations between different departments in an organization. And it also ensures faster and accurate communication between the departments. As we have discussed, it goes with a clear and a better accountability of the results. It also helps in evaluating the performance of the materials management in a very objective manner. It results in the team spirit, resulting in better morale and cooperation. This also ensures better opportunities for the growth and development of the organization. As we have seen the meaning of integrated materials management, then the benefits that are to be derived from the integrated approach, we shall now put it in a nutshell. What are the basic characteristics of our material function to have a successful materials management? The corporate policies regarding the purchasing plans, programs and strategies must be clearly stated. Then the action plan for purchasing must be laid down properly. The organizational matrix, namely the interrelationship between the different departments which are related, must be clearly specified. The responsibilities for analyzing the material requirements, the vendor analysis, the analysis of the quotations, placing of orders, follow-up of the orders, and controlling the various levels of inventory must be clearly specified. Then adopting the integrated materials management approach must be properly communicated and properly instructed to the personnel in the department. The training, manpower planning, motivation and morale aspects must be considered with. The objectives of the materials management must be given top priority for accomplishment. The materials must be standardized and varieties to be reduced. This will be achieved through proper qualification of the materials and the rationalization of the materials. Inventory management will be adopted for achieving minimum inventory carrying cost. To adopt the various scientific methods of cost reduction, this materials management is said to be very essential. And to maintain a minimum stock to sales ratio is also necessary. Then the less material in the move, that is your work in progress. Work in progress must also be properly controlled and administered. And this results in a systematic record keeping of the materials also regarding the receipt and the issues. Then maximum inventory turnover ratio. The inventory turnover ratio must be calculated and it must be properly maintained. Then the losses due to obsolescence, the surplus, deteriorations, scrap can be reduced. The material handling cost can also be reduced. And it will also lead to the shorter lead times. The management information system can also be optimized. The customer can be satisfied to the maximum extent, and the vendor-vendee relationships will also be maintained in a proper manner. So these characteristics of the material functions can be achieved by maintaining proper integrated materials management. Let us now see the organization of materials management. Normally in an organization, we will have the board of directors, the elected representatives of the shareholders at the top. Then we will have the chief executive. Below him, we will have personnel manager, finance manager, production manager, marketing manager, and we will have the materials manager. This materials manager will have inventory control manager, purchasing control manager, traffic control manager, and production control manager under him. We will have the separate departments of these materials management, mainly to have proper control and direction of various activities related to the materials management. And there can be subsections of departments, but in general, materials manager controls only 4 major sections, and he is responsible for reporting to the president of the organization, namely the chief executive of the organization. So we have 4 main managers under materials manager. We will have inventory control, purchasing control, traffic control, and production control. The goals of the management is to provide an unbroken chain of the components for production to manufacture the goods on time for the customer base. The materials management is charged with the releasing of materials to the supply base, ensuring that materials are delivered on time to the company using the correct carrier. Materials is generally measured by accomplishing on-time delivery to the consumer, on-time delivery from the supply base, attaining a tight budget, inventory strength management, and inventory accuracy. The materials department is also charged with the responsibility of managing new launches. In some companies, materials management is also charged with the procurement of materials by establishing and managing a supply base. In other companies, the procurement and management of the supply base is said to be the responsibility of a separate purchasing department. The purchasing department is then responsible for the purchase price variances from the supply base. In large companies, with multitudes of consumer changes to the final product over a course of year, there may be a separate logistics department that is responsible for all new acquisition, launches, and customer changes. This logistics department ensures that the launch materials are procured for production and then transfers the responsibility to the plant materials management. Materials management is not a science, and depending upon the relevance and the importance that the company officials place upon the controlling material flow, the level of expertise changes. Some companies place materials management on a level whereby there is a logistics director. Other companies see the importance level as managing at the plant level by hiring as inventory manager or a materials manager. Still other companies employ the concept that supervisors in a plant are responsible, accompanied by the planners of the materials. The major challenge that the materials managers face is maintaining a continuous flow of materials for production. There are many factors that inhibit the accuracy of inventory, which results in the production stoppages, premium freight, and often inventory adjustments. The major issues that all materials managers face are incorrect bill of materials, inaccurate cycle counts, unreported scraps, shipping errors, receiving errors, and production reporting errors. Materials managers have striven to determine how to manage these issues in the business sectors of manufacturing since the beginning of the industrial revolution. Although there are no unknown methods that eliminate, therefore, mention inventory accuracy inhibitors. There are best methods available to eliminate the impact upon maintaining an uninterrupted flow of materials for production. Materials management plans and designs for the delivery, distribution, storage, collection, and removal of occupant-generated streams of materials and services. It is usually an additional service that is offered as a part of the campus planning process or a building design project. It is most beneficial for an university, healthcare, or corporate environments. Materials management looks at the planning and designing considerations needed to support the efficient delivery and removal of goods and services that support occupant activity. The streams of occupant-generated materials and activity include mail, office supplies, lab supplies, food special deliveries, custodial services, building supply, wastages and recycling, and service costs. A materials management plan may include planning guidelines or full design for the following activities: the truck delivery and service vehicle routes to reduce the vehicle and pedestrian conflicts in an organization, loading docks and delivery points to increase accommodation and reduce queuing and vehicle idling, recycling, trash and hazardous waste collection and removal to increase waste diversion and reduce costs, service equipment and utility infrastructure relocation or concealment to improve the aesthetics and realize the landscaping goals, and regulation and operating planning will also be included in the planning guidelines. We shall now see what are the benefits of materials management. The effective materials management plan builds from and enhances an institutional master plan by filling in the gaps and producing an environmentally responsible and efficient outcome. An institutional campus, office, or housing complex can expect a myriad of benefits from an effective materials management plan. For starters, there are long-term cost savings as consolidating, reconfiguring, and better managing a campus core infrastructure reduces annual operating costs. An institutional campus, office, or a housing complex will also get the highest and the best out of campus real estate. An effective materials management plan also means a more holistic approach to managing vehicle use and emissions, solid waste, hazardous waste, recycling, and utility services. As a result, this means a greener, a more sustainable environment and a manifestation of many demands today for institutions to become more environmentally friendly. In fact, the environmental advantages creative materials management plans may also qualify for the innovations in the design products. And finally, an effective materials management plan can improve aesthetics, removing unsafe and unsightly conditions, placing core services out of sight, and creating a more pedestrian-friendly environment will improve visual and physical sense of place for those who live and work there. So integrated materials management will also include this material management plan and the design. Thus, in this session, you would have understood the meaning of integrated materials management and the major advantages of the integrated materials management. So, the materials management involves all the functions of the management, and mainly it balances the marketing, production, and mainly it involves the coordination of marketing, production, and purchase department. And after seeing the integrated materials management, you would have understood what is the organization of the materials management. The materials management involves the inventory control, purchase control, and traffic control and production control in an organization. Thus, in this session, you would have understood the meaning of integrated materials management and its benefits and the organization of a material management in an organization. Thank you.